The Champions League is changing football again. And if you're watching the 2026-27 season thinking this is basically the same competition we've always known, it isn't. The old group stage is gone. There are no traditional groups of four, and there is no simple situation where you play three teams home and away and count the points. Instead, 36 clubs will compete in one single league table, and every club will play 8 different opponents. 4 matches at home, 4 away. That sounds simple, but once you understand what happens to those 36 teams after those 8 games, you realize there is much more at stake than just qualifying. So let's break down exactly how the 2026-27 Champions League works. And more importantly, what actually happens if your team finishes first, 8th, 9th, 24th, or 25th, because those positions completely change what happens next. The 2026-27 Champions League is the 72nd season of the competition, and the league phase begins in September. Match day 1 is scheduled for September 8th to 10. The league phase then runs through 8 match days, finishing on January 27th, 2027. And the final will be played at the Metropolitano Stadium in Madrid on June 5th, 2027. But before those matches begin, we need to understand how the 36 teams actually get into the competition. 29 clubs qualify directly for the league phase. The remaining 7 places are decided through qualifying and the playoffs. Those qualifying rounds take place throughout July and August, and the final playoff second legs are scheduled for August 25th and 26th. Then comes one of the most important dates before the competition really gets going, August 27th. That's when the Champions League phase draw takes place. And this draw is very different from the old group stage draw. The 36 teams are divided into 4 pots, 9 clubs in each pot. The pots are based on UEFA's club coefficient rankings, with the Champions League holders placed at the top of pot 1. But here's where it gets interesting. Every team gets 2 opponents from each pot. One opponent from each pot is played at home, and the other is played away. So instead of playing the same 3 opponents twice, you play 8 different clubs, 8 matches, 8 different opponents, 4 at home, 4 away, and all 36 clubs are ranked together in one table. There's no Group A, no Group B, no Group C. It's one giant Champions League table. And this completely changes the strategy because every result affects where you sit against 35 other teams. A win gives you 3 points, a draw gives you 1. A defeat gives you nothing. And after 8 matches, the table is split into 3 very different sections. The teams finishing 1st through 8th go directly into the round of 16. That's the prize for finishing inside the top 8. No knockout playoff, no extra tie, straight into the round of 16. And that makes those top 8 positions incredibly valuable because then we get to positions 9 through 24. These teams aren't eliminated, but they don't get a free pass either. They enter the knockout phase playoffs. And this is where things get dangerous because suddenly, after playing 8 league phase matches, you have to play another 2-legged knockout tie just to reach the round of 16. The teams finishing 9th through 16th are seeded. The teams finishing 17th through 24th are unseeded. And the seeded teams generally play the second leg at home. So finishing 9th is much better than finishing 24th. Both teams technically survive the league phase, but their routes into the next round are very different. Then we reach positions 25 through 36, and this is where there is no safety net. If you finish 25th or lower, you're out. No knockout playoff, no Europa League parachute. Your Champions League campaign is finished, and that means the difference between 24th and 25th could literally be the difference between continuing your European season and going home. That's one of the biggest things people need to understand about this format. There are 3 completely different outcomes. Top 8, straight to the round of 16, 9th to 24th, knockout playoffs, 25th to 36th, eliminated. And that's why every league phase match matters. But there is another part of this system that makes the draw fascinating. The strongest teams can meet each other much earlier because you're no longer stuck in a small group where the big clubs are usually separated. A team can face opponents from all 4 pots. That means the league phase is designed to give clubs a much wider range of opponents. You could have a heavyweight European giant at home another major club away, and then 6 other matches against teams from different levels of European football. And because every club plays 8 different opponents, you can't simply prepare for the same team twice. There is no second leg to correct a bad performance against the same opponent. Lose away from home, you don't get that same fixture back at your stadium. That's important because the old group stage allowed teams to recover. You could lose away, then beat the same opponent at home. Now, every match is its own problem, and that makes squad depth even more important, especially for clubs playing in England. Because imagine trying to compete in the Premier League while also playing 8 Champions League matches, then potentially 2 more playoff matches, then the round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, and the final. This is where the Champions League stops being just a competition for the best starting 11. It's a competition for the best squad. And if you're looking at Manchester United, that's one of the biggest things I'm watching. United are back in the Champions League. And that sounds fantastic. But Champions League football doesn't just give you bigger nights. It gives you more pressure, more travel, more elite opponents, more rotation decisions, and more opportunities for injuries and fatigue. So Michael Carrick isn't just preparing Manchester United for 38 Premier League matches anymore. He's preparing them for a season where the squad could potentially play deep into Europe, and the margin for error becomes much smaller. Because if United want to make a serious Champions League run, finishing somewhere around the middle of that table isn't enough. You want to be inside the top 8. You want direct qualification for the round of 16. You want to avoid the extra playoff. And you want the highest possible league position because the knockout draw is also influenced by where teams finish. The knockout phase playoffs come first. They are scheduled for February 16 and 17, then February 23 and 24, 2027. After that comes the round of 16, March 9th and 10, then March 16 and 17. The quarterfinals arrive in April. The semifinals are in late April and early May. And then June 5th, Madrid, the Champions League final. But here's something else that makes this format fascinating. Once the league phase ends, the competition doesn't simply forget where you finished. Your league position helps determine your route through the knockout stage. The top 8 are seeded for the round of 16 draw, and the higher you finish, the better your position in the bracket can be. So there is a reason to keep pushing even if qualification is already guaranteed. Finishing 8th instead of 1st isn't the same thing. Finishing 12th instead of 9th isn't the same thing. And finishing 24th instead of 17th isn't the same thing. Every position can matter. And that's probably the biggest lesson from this new Champions League. The league phase isn't just a qualification round. It's the first part of the knockout strategy. You're not simply trying to survive, you're trying to build the best possible route to the final. And that changes how managers have to think. Do you rotate against a difficult opponent? Do you prioritize the Premier League? Do you chase a win because 3 points could move you 5 places? Do you accept a draw away from home? Do you protect your players? Or do you go all out because the difference between finishing 8th and 12th could be significant? These are the decisions managers will have to make. And that's why I think the 2026-27 Champions League could be fascinating, because the old competition was about surviving your group. This one is about navigating a league and then surviving the knockout phase. And there is another detail people sometimes misunderstand. The league phase is not a round robin where every team plays every other team. There are 36 clubs, but each club only plays 8 opponents. So you're ranked against everybody, but you don't actually play everybody. That's what makes the draw so important. Your 8 opponents can completely change the difficulty of your route. 2 clubs could finish on similar points, but have faced completely different schedules. And that is why every Champions League draw will immediately become a talking point. Who did Manchester United get? Who did Arsenal get? Who did Real Madrid get? Who got the easiest schedule? Who got the nightmare draw? And who has put themselves in the best position before the first ball is even kicked? That's going to be part of the story. But ultimately, the format rewards consistency. You can't afford to throw away too many matches because there are only 8 opportunities to collect points. And unlike a traditional group, there isn't a small table where you can immediately see exactly what you need. Thinner, you're competing against 35 teams. Every week, results around Europe can move your position. You could win and still drop a place. You could draw and suddenly fall several positions. You could win 2 matches in a row and jump into the top 8. That's what makes the league table so important. And for fans, it should make every match day more interesting because you're not just watching your own team's result. You're watching what happens across the entire Champions League table. And then comes the knockout phase. This is where the competition becomes much more familiar. The playoffs are two-legged. The round of 16 is two-legged. The quarterfinals are two-legged. The semifinals are two-legged. And then there is one match. The final. 90 minutes, possibly extra time, possibly penalties to decide the Champions League winner. And the 2027 final has a very fitting location. Madrid, the Metropolitano Stadium, home of Atletico Madrid, on June 5th, 2027. So when you put the entire competition together, the pathway is actually quite simple. Qualifying, league phase, knockout playoffs, round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, final. But the important part isn't memorizing those names. It's understanding what each position means. Because in the 2026-27 Champions League, your league phase position can determine whether you get a direct route to the round of 16, whether you have to survive a playoff, or whether your European campaign ends completely. And that's why I'm going to be watching Manchester United very closely, because United are back where they belong. But being back in the Champions League isn't the achievement. It's the starting point. The real question is what they do with it. Can Carrick build a squad strong enough to compete in England and Europe? Can United finish inside the top 8? Can they avoid the knockout playoffs? Can Bruno Fernandes perform against Europe's best? Can the new midfield handle the pressure? Can the defense survive against elite attacks? And can this Manchester United team actually go deep into the competition? Because getting back into the Champions League is progress. But Manchester United cannot become satisfied with simply participating. The club has won this competition before. The standard has to be higher. And that's what makes the 2026-27 season so interesting. This isn't the old Champions League. It's bigger, it's more complicated, and potentially much more unpredictable. 36 teams, 8 league phase matches, 1 massive table, top 8 straight through. Positions 9 to 24 fighting through the playoffs. Positions 25 to 36 eliminated. And eventually, 2 teams will walk into the Metropolitano Stadium on June 5th. Only one will leave as European champion. And if Manchester United are serious about returning to the top of European football, this is where the journey begins.